Yeah, and again, congrats on all the success.
Oh,
reaches.
Thanks, you guys. Congrats to you guys too. I mean,
Thank you.
you're already knocking it out of the park, and we're like a quarter of the way through the campaign as
Yeah,
we're filming
yeah,
this
yeah,
right
we've
now.
got-
Yeah,
So-
we launched on Tuesday.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're feeling good about it.
Yeah.
So go pledge for it.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
pledge.
Yeah, you heard it here
You
first.
hear, yeah, Zoom it, go pledge. Good process, but we're incredibly proud of Cults of Zahak, which you can get on the Bloodmore Kickstarter,
That's right.
included with the Shucked Oyster as well, with the
The
full
entire
campaign
backlog.
setting. Yeah.
Get it. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. You
But
guys.
it's been awesome doing this, and the success that we had with the Shucked Oyster was way more than we thought that we would.
Really?
But yeah, it was
Yes.
really incredible
Huge
experience.
white pill. Huge
Yeah.
white pill experience.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've never heard that term before.
Yeah.
White belt experience. Yeah. Dang.
Yeah,
It's my
it was,
invention.
Okay, I'll credit you. What is it?
I invented that. Yeah, but it was amazing. It was a ton of fun to work on the Shucked Oyster and write that, and then going through playtesting and having other people play it. It came out
Yeah.
different every single time.
Right, which is
Yeah.
exactly
Exactly
what we
what we-
wanted.
That's what you want, right? Because then
Yes.
it's actually that proves that it's dynamic.
Right away.
So,
Even
yeah.
all the way back to just the marketing prompt on the Kickstarter. Someone
Somebody-
ran the Shuck Oyster
Yeah.
and got it.
And
Yeah.
that's right. There was a Bronstein for it. Yeah, who did that? I
There's
remember
a,
seeing that.
A guy named B-Dubs.
Yes, it was-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he
Okay.
just did right off of the Kickstarter page. He was like, "Building burns down, got it.
Got it.
Let's go."
Ready to go.
Oh my
Yeah.
god! I love it.
And he
I
was
like,
right.
I know someone did
Yeah.
it. Amazing. That is so. And if someone's gonna run a Bronstein, it's him, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, I'm just on the fringe of that whole posse on the internet because I've been interested in Brownsteins, and so I kind of
Yeah.
came upon them, and I was like, B-Dubs is gonna be really
Yeah.
skeptical. But it's okay. You know, it is what it is.
You can't stop what's coming.
It's-
No, you can't,
Yeah.
but it's fine. It's been fun.
Yeah, and that was the first Bronstein I'd ever played in. Was your Shadowstein? Or
Really?
Yeah.
yeah, yesterday. I'd never done that, but it's this is something that we've talked about before. Is that it's a lot. There's the element of the player versus player stuff kind of comes naturally into like Vampire, and so
Yeah.
Right.
it was right at home there. I was like, all right, I'm gonna run the table on these people.
You knew what to do,
And you did,
made it. Yeah, no, thank God, because it's having at least one experienced, like either LARPer or somebody who's done
Yeah.
the PvP stuff is so helpful
Yeah.
in those, because
Mhm.
most people are like, I've never done this before, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how hard am I allowed to go?
Yeah.
And so you are the wizard, which is
Yeah.
I think the hardest role, because everyone suspects you.
Yeah.
And you are capable of doing a lot of things, and so
Right.
you have to be careful if you don't want to be too obvious that you're like magically nuking people. And
Right.
I've never had the wizards survive past the mid game before, I don't think. So yeah, it
They
was
should have
amazing.
killed. Yeah, and they said we're like, yeah, we should have taken you out earlier.
You should have
Everyone
done
really should have. Yeah.
Everyone
I know.
was like, "Oh, he's a
When I
bad
was
guy."
walking around doing an evil voice. Yeah.
You fools.
It's like, my
And you
lord,
also have like the
you
wizard
have
beard.
my loyalty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just-
exactly.
Just
Get out of
build the role without even
Yeah.
realizing it. That's so funny. It was good. That was a really fun session, actually. That one went really well, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah. Thanks for playing in it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Next time we're getting you.
I'm down. If I wasn't running Vampire,
Yeah.
I know. All of our events
Which-
crossed
which
over.
you need to
Yeah.
get in a Vampire game
I
next
Yeah.
year.
know. I
Yeah,
really
yeah.
want to. I almost got to play Vampire in high school.
Mhm.
I had like my D&D friends, and then I had my really cool friend Levi, who was like literally would like wear a top hat to school and stuff.
Yeah.
He was that kind of vampire guy.
Uh-huh.
He tried to get me to play Vampire numerous times, and I just ended
Uh-huh.
up being like, "Oh, I'm playing D&D on Saturday with my other friends." So I never got to
Yeah.
play with him, but. And then I worked in a game store and was selling tons of Vampire, but barely got to
Right,
play.
right,
And
right.
they were like kids LARPing Vampire in the parking lot
Yeah,
out behind the
yeah.
game store. I'd be like going out to my car and be like, "Why is there a kid in a trench coat like doing this?"
Yeah, we're all doing
Like,
paper, scissors,
yeah.
and each other.
Yeah. It was, and I was like, "All right."
Now to be clear, we do denounce Vampire LARP
we
behavior.
did not say
Yeah. And
We do
the-
not.
and like
Abomination.
99% of the vampire fandom.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
However, it is really good. You were talking about, how you're overlapping with like the Bros, the Bronstein stuff,
a
and
little bit.
being in the Shadowstein yesterday. Coming from Vampire, a lot of the forgotten fundamentals of role playing and
Yeah.
why even do this hobby really did get carried through and sort of saved from memory, from being
Right.
forgotten.
And I think it
in-
was accidental. Like
It was definitely there was
Yeah.
no
they were-
conscious
yeah,
effort,
they were not in on the history of the game. It was just
which makes it more
Yeah.
more real, and it
Yeah.
in some sense makes it more true.
Mhm.
And what's really great about not only how Shadowdark is written, but that true, real, organic way people are intuiting it, that there's a freedom there with the structure of the rules, that lets us do something which is really different than a typical module in the Shuck Oyster.
Yeah.
And anybody can do something like this, or
Yeah.
run a Braunstein, a Shadowstein, in it. I really do think as time goes on, this time next year, 2 years from now, because as we know, second one
The second
did
yeah.
even better.
Yeah.
Against
first-
my expectations,
Yeah.
even I was like, wow.
Yeah, and our first
Yeah.
book did way better than we could have hoped for,
Yeah.
and
I'm so
things are
glad,
going even
yeah.
better for Bloodmore. And these are not full games. They're
I know,
they're
these are
riding
so
on a
nice.
wave which is
Yeah.
real, that people are really connecting with
Right.
Shadowdark. And I think a lot of the creativity that we saw in the early to mid 2010s through the at that time new OSR movement is really going to find itself living
Yeah.
in the Shadowdark space.
Oh.
And a
That-
lot of people are making really cool stuff for it.
And that's
Most
something that
crucially us, but
has been yeah exactly. But the thing that I really super appreciate is that you have a very permissive open license for your game, and I think that
Thanks.
is going to give Shadowdark legs for a very, very, very long time. I wish more people did that because
yeah.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder, like, what are people afraid of to do
Yeah.
such an open? And
Yeah.
it's funny because Shadowdark sort of like was born out of the flames of the open gaming license burning.
Right.
So
Thank you, Watsy.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I had like a 3-day stretch where I was like, oh, my career's over. And then
Mhm.
after that point, I was like, well, actually, this might be better for me than
Right.
I realized. And, I don't know if I think that it did influence some of the decisions I made in the license
Sure.
because I
Mhm.
thought I was going to be using the open game license. And once
Right.
it was gone, I was like, well, I want something at least that permissive. And
Yeah.
I actually think ours is more
It's more.
permissive in
Yeah.
some ways. So
It's very simple. That like
Right.
it's very like, and this I also really appreciated. This was when we were first writing this, we were emailing the Arcane Library, and Michael got back to us like immediately with
good.
answers about the licensing and stuff like that.
thanks, Michael.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It
he's
was
great.
great.
He's so good.
Um,
Yeah.
So it's just been really nice to work with, and the thing that I like so much about Shadowdark, there's the game master's tools. I think you just knocked that out of the park.
Yeah.
Thank
and
you.
it's like because it is reminiscent of all the stuff that you had in like the AD&D 1E DMG, but it's condensed into like so much an easier usable form.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was the thing that really kind of hooked me, because when I first got the because I backed Shadowdark, I just backed it based on the art. On the
Oh,
Kickstarter. I was
ooh,
I was like,
good.
that's cool. Like, give me that.
I mean, the artists were so awesome.
So good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had a couple of artists reach out to us. One of the guy who did the Leech Man and the Fishman person
Yes.
portraits. This guy Joe Porcio out of Spain. He's amazing. And has like perfect style for it.
He's
And all, but I backed it based on the art, and then when I was reading it, I was kind of like, okay, there's not really much of a setting here. There's the implied setting and whatnot, and I kind of put it down for a couple of months, and then when we were thinking of doing this, we're like, we'll make a YouTube video like comparing Shadowdark and OSE, and
I
ended
saw
up
that one.
being the most boring idea.
I
ever.
do not want to be
Yeah,
doing
yeah,
this.
we were like, this
It's
is
really
but that like that's where the idea for the Shucked Oyster came from. So we were just telling this goofy story of what it's like to be the person who's, diving into the earth with fighting demons and stealing their treasure, and then coming back and blowing it all in the carousing,
Rousing has to match the risk level of the crazy thing you're doing in
Yeah.
the dungeon, and you guys really captured that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what kind of person would be doing this over and over
A
again?
debauched lunatic.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that birthed the Shucked Oyster, and so I kept just reading more and more Shadowdark, and I was just like, this is really good, like
Oh, thank
really, really good. And we couldn't stop thinking about it. The idea just kept snowballing. It was originally supposed to be a 20-page PDF.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
was like, we're gonna do our first
Right.
thing, we're just gonna release it, no Kickstarter, anything, and then it ended up more than 10 times as long as we thought it was.
That's how it starts. That's how all good projects start. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
well, this will just be like a little side trip, a little fun
Yeah.
thing, and then you're like, what have I done?
Yeah, and it continued snowballing to the point where like we have a further adventures chapter in it, which started coming up with like
The wider
sort of the
world
wider
and
world, and we took a break. We kind of put that on the back burner, and we're just continuing collecting ideas while we were writing our next book, Cults. And by the time that we were finished with Cults, like the Bloodmore campaign setting just started pouring out of
Yes.
us, and we had already been playing in Bloodmore for a little while in our home game. But it's just it's one of those things where when you kind of catch lightning in a bottle, you
got to go with it.
Ride it and go
Yeah.
where it goes.
Yeah.
And it's funny, so much of the Shuck Oyster came out of the carousing mechanic. That's the one thing. It's like, okay, there's a clear reality here, which that mechanic is trying to, or does sort of capture. It mimics, it simulates that. And coming off of Cults, which is a D100 Mithras product,
Yes.
which is a much different tone, and Cults is a much different tone.
Yeah.
And there's these intricacies in cults and brotherhoods and the social orders.
Yeah.
Like, that's my big thing.
Yeah.
The reason I love Mithras so much. Like, man, we're doing a setting now. Like, it'd be really great to have something with factions, and then we saw the oaths
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
stuff. Like,
Yeah.
perfect. That's
Perfect.
exactly just like with the carousing mechanic. We spun off, and that spun at least 10
yeah.
now new
Player
ideas
basic
of
factions.
lunatic
Yeah.
player factions using the oaths mechanic.
Yeah.
And I haven't
Good.
seen so much with people using oaths. It's in Curse
It's-
Scroll 3.
Yes, the
Yeah.
third one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a thing where I was like, oh, at the time when I was developing, and it's like a small subsystem.
Right.
Like carousing,
Right.
actually.
Yeah.
Carousing is actually underdeveloped in the main book because it's the number of outcomes you can get, or like there's like 14.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, I assume that if people want to spice this up, they'll write something.
They'll write something themselves.
Which you
yeah.
guys clearly
Yeah,
do,
exactly.
like, took that
We were like, we got it, Kelsey. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah, 'cause in hindsight, I was like, well, it's kind of, it's something that's used so often. And then, I mean, oaths also kind of being a similar framework where I
Yeah.
was like, well, I hope this gives a structure that people might expand, because there's only so much, you guys know this problem now. There's
Oh, I
only so
know.
much layout space.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And the big limitation of trying to convey something salient points
Yeah.
while having like 2 pages maybe
Right.
to do it. And so I'm really glad that you guys latched onto that, because
Yeah.
I never want what I write to be considered like it has to be either this simple
This
or
way
this
or
is the
this way.
definitive and only way to do it. Like, that's never been
Yeah.
my intention. Yeah.
And that's kind of the cool thing too, is that Shadowdark's got since it is so concise, that there's areas for expansion, and this is why I think you've seen like there's all of these little a la carte things that you can get for Shadowdark. Like, it's like, oh, you want Hirelings, you can get that. You want domain play, you have a ton of options out there for that now. Now they've we don't have it here. I bought a copy though from Alchemic Raker, Hellmarch.
Hellmarch, yes. I'm
Really,
so
really
glad
cool.
you wrote it, because I didn't want to write it.
Yeah.
I was like, but I would love to have warfare rules, and he's
Yeah.
like the number one expert to do something like that, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's very fun because that's something that you can use with Shadowdark or anything.
Yes.
Because it doesn't interfere with the
Right.
actual core mechanic of like
Right.
combat or anything. It just
Exactly.
runs alongside it. It's really, really brilliant.
Yeah, it's so modular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just a Shadowdark is a really, I think, kind of unique thing. It is sort of lightning in a bottle in that it captures, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of captures the feeling of what I think like DX and like the early kind of D&D lines were supposed to have, without needing to have the context of when those games were written. Like
Yeah.
there's so much of that stuff where people pick it up, and you can get things like OSE, and there's very, very good game, clearly explained rules. But there's a lot of, like, if you try and pick up Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of people just bounce off of that.
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
understandably so.
Right. It's funny. It's like, I wonder, I mean, I know when Gary was writing it that I know for a fact that he didn't use it as written. I don't like, but I think he
Yeah.
wanted to try to capture he was the first person to try to be like, we're going to make a consistent, like, worldwide system for the purpose of like tournament play and stuff. And that was ambitious and cool. And obviously no one had done such a thing before, but
Mhm.
I don't know. Did you guys play during 3rd edition at all? Like D&D 3rd
briefly.
edition?
I-
I
a lot of
actually
Yeah.
started late. I started in my mid-20s
Yeah,
in
so then it
role-playing
was-
game. I started in Pathfinder 1.
Right, which
Yeah.
is basically 3rd edition.
It's basically
Yeah.
3rd edition.
So
yeah.
you would have seen this precedent where like there was this charge towards codifying everything, and
Yes.
even in 3rd edition it was still
Yeah.
were still like doubling down on that.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I mostly played 3rd edition as a kid, and
Yeah.
so I don't remember where I was going with this except just to say that it's like I felt the game becoming more restrictive and moving away from that sort of easy pick up and play thing that we had when we were really young. Like,
Yeah, and that's a game that was like meant for builds and optimization.
It was.
And all this stuff.
and I was like,
Yeah.
who are we targeting with? Like, who? It's such marketing speak, but like, yeah, but like third edition, like, who are we trying to get? Like, AD&D was clearly made for wargamers,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
for wargamers,
Yeah.
but like VX and stuff wasn't.
Yeah.
And they were very obviously aimed at different contingents.
Yes.
And now you're like, well, which one survived?
I mean,
VX survives.
I think like this feeling, I believe everybody, at least everybody who's really serious about the hobby, intuits, and we feel that. Even people who like that 3.5 or even that 4th edition
Mhm.
feel, or who are coming into the hobby from video games, and this is presumably going to be the case more and more and more. There's like these two competing impulses in the hobby writ large, which is I want to feel young again. I want to feel like a kid again.
Yes,
I want
nostalgia,
to
yeah.
just use my imagination. And this is supposed to be a thing where anything can happen, and that's cool, and we all want that. And there's the sort of the sheen and the shine and the pizzazz and the flash of sort of video games. And video games in some sense are more immediately accessible or visceral because you have visual feedback, happening. That's the
Yeah.
nature of that medium. And I think there's a misunderstanding. There are some great things that video games can do that
Yes.
only video games can
Yes.
do.
Right.
And like, well, why can't we do that too? Some of that stuff you can do. Most of that stuff was already there because
Yeah.
video games
Yeah.
were inspired
By
because of-
D&D.
Isn't
by-
it funny? It's the snake
D&D.
eating its tail.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like video games gave rise out of what we created, but now we're trying to make ourselves into
Yeah.
video games. It was such a weird,
Right.
like 4th edition, especially was
Sure,
very
sure.
a weird realization of that.
But I think we're seeing the breakdown of a lot of that overburdened structure, which has really been the case for the past 25 years at this
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It existed before, but really after 3.0, we've been getting to this point, and things really just aren't working. Even 2014 5th edition, implicitly
Yeah.
acknowledges this with trying to sort of roll it back.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again,
Deliberately.
and that's a
Mhm.
big part of why it was as successful as it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
At the time, I think it was the best edition of D&D in forever and
In
ever.
a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
It's like I started on
Still is.
AD&D 2nd edition because that's what my
Yes.
brothers were playing
Yeah.
in the 80s and 90s. And I remember, like, I played a couple sessions of 3.0 and I didn't like it, but I didn't like AD&D 2e either. But
Right.
but it was I got into Vampire when I was around 15. My friend Matt got me into it, and then I was just the White Wolf guy for a
Yeah.
very, very, very long
And they were
time.
very healthy back then. They had a
Yeah.
lot going on.
Oh,
Yeah.
they had a lot, yeah.
Mhm.
Not so much anymore, but
I know, it's a shame. Come on. Yeah.
But I remember reading the basic rules for 5th edition when it came out, and I was like, okay, this actually feels like D&D again.
It did.
You know,
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
a big breath of fresh air. Very, very successful thing that, when it's owned by a massive corporation, you start churning out things by committee, and it's not so great anymore.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the nature of the beast, and that's the attempt to kind of bring everything in again and rug pull the OGL was their attempt, I think, to just gain control over the entire third-party market, which, again, it's like this is one of these things where the third-party market and the main corporate product are driving each other the entire
Very
time.
much.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so it's a very destructive thing, I think, to try and keep your game to yourself in that way.
It is.
Yeah.
I recommend that anyone who is making a game out there to go the open license route, because you also
Yes.
want people. You should be so
lucky
lucky
to have
people
terrible
making
products that
terrible
people
third-party
made.
products
You
for
should be.
Yeah.
Yes, it's indeed
Like-
true. Like if there weren't a strong third party for Shadowdark, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I would have died on the
Yeah.
vine a year.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
And I'm
But-
aware of that, but I also want people to make things.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would also say that if you look at any convention roster, the number of games, the percentage of them that are being run that are Shadowdark, it's getting big.
It's growing,
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Like
is
the number
wild.
of Shadowdark games that are run here at North Texas was huge this
Yes, yes.
year.
And notably, they're not running my material, they're running their own material.
Right.
Because they're third party
It's
creators.
what you should
Right.
Yes.
want.
Which
you
is
know?
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's super good for the game, but even even more than that, I don't know. I think some. I think I absolutely have critics who think that like my entire interest in the hobby is just derived out of marketing, not genuine.
As if that's even a bad thing anyway.
I know.
Oh no!
Oh no, I told
no.
people about my products.
Like, there's. I think some people are like, Kelsey's wife is an ad exec from it, and she's never. No,
She has the
her
direct line
degrees
to
in
like.
fine art. Okay, like she's very good at helping me with marketing
Right.
stuff because she's visually. She understands email marketing, but she's never been an ad exec at a company.
Yeah.
I mean, we
But-
talk about this so often. This like,
Yeah.
we get so many comments like your YouTube shills, and it's like
Yeah.
you're
Oh, I'm
you're talking about your product. Like, don't be sorry, we love it.
No,
Yeah.
you have to. If you're
yeah.
not going to, who is?
Like this is
That's
this is
exactly it.
Yeah.
this is good,
yeah.
and our point is like, you spent the time to make this, or whoever's making something. Presumably, it matters to you. Presumably, you're interested in it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You should be excited. Surely you're excited about it.
Yeah.
And all you're doing, just like you're sharing with your friends, hey, I saw this movie. Hey, I played this game, this
Yeah.
video game. I read this book. That's the energy you're putting out there.
Right.
What's wrong with that? You know?
Right? I think when you really when you rationally examine it, it's really hard to come up with anything actually wrong with it. I don't know where this like gut reaction, people have this emotional reaction to marketing where they're like opposed to it intrinsically because they think you're trying to trick them.
They think
Yeah.
you're trying to do something underhanded.
Yeah,
Right.
like
Steal from
manipulate them into forcing them to buy something. You
Yeah.
know?
Right.
Like,
And this
yeah.
and on the flip side of that, there's a lot of good sentiment. Like there are people who will be like, yeah, like support indie creators and blah blah blah. And we're always like, that's cool. Like if you want to, and we say this, if you want to support us, that's great, but you don't have to. It's like buy things.
Yeah, we're
that you
not
think
part
are
of a
cool.
tribe that you need
Yeah.
to
You just
swear fealty to.
You
Yeah,
can just buy things.
If you
that
don't want the
like.
Shuck
That's
Oyster,
all.
Yeah.
Don't get it.
Yeah.
And don't get it because we're not WotC. And
Yeah.
right. In fact, if that's someone's reason for getting something, they'll probably be
Though
disappointed.
I know they're
Right.
not going to use it.
Yeah,
anyway.
yeah,
that's the
exactly.
You're
thing.
just wasting your money.
right.
So true.
Yeah, but it's there's this assumption of underhandedness when you're trying to sell a product, and I think part of that is born out of like it's like the artist mindset and the hobbyist mindset. It has to be pure, man. You know, this is
Yeah.
the
You
this
gotta
is
want
my
nothing
hobby.
out
You
of
gotta
it.
love
Yeah.
You
Like,
just got to do it for the love of the game, and it's like
So it's so
why?
poisonous.
You know how much work I put into this?
I know.
Like-
And it's as if to suggest such
Yeah.
things are mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Like you
Right.
can't love the game if you're also
if you're
doing
also
it for
doing
money.
it.
And it's
exactly.
like, I mean,
Which
like
is-
Completely false.
I know.
it's just so proven false that it's silly.
It's
yeah.
like every piece of the greatest art ever made was commercially produced.
yes.
It's
Exactly.
like
Yes. It's true.
Da Vinci
Yeah.
wasn't, didn't paint the Mona Lisa for free.
Right.
Yeah.
He wasn't just sitting there going like, "This is cool."
Yeah. God, I love being poor.
Yeah, exactly.
No, poor guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of the best art was. Yeah, it's funny that it was considered worthy to invest into art back then. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Support the artists. but-
Exactly.
Not that it isn't now, but it's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
But again, this speaks to that a growing and a really healthy third party market
Yeah.
that is out there. And again,
It's attracting. The thing is, it's attracting really good
Good
creators too. Like Chubby Funster's here.
yes.
He's
stuff is amazing.
Yeah, he's
So
played
good,
with us in
yeah.
a couple games, and he's amazing. But he is so smart, and his stuff is doing. He's got like the corner on the third party market on drive-through.
I like
right now.
multiple games, Shadowdark and
Yeah,
Axe.
and, like,
Yeah. He's doing so much for both. I don't know how he has time to do so much
I don't
writing.
know.
I'm like, teach me how you do all of this. Yeah.
It's like we
I wish we were as prolific.
I know.
I know. Well, I wanted to ask you guys about how because you guys co-write together. You
Yes.
co-develop material,
Yeah.
which is, I'm sure, really challenging. And like, you also are not pigeonholed into one system. You guys write for you've
Yeah.
written for Axe. It's super, super, super crunchy. You can read. It's they're like
Yeah.
polar opposites.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, yeah.
And I find it so interesting that you guys are able to sort of jump into both and
Mm-hmm.
also do that while working together. So, I mean, I was like curious how you manage that.
It wouldn't work
dynamic.
any other way.
Yeah.
Well, anything that we wrote independently of each other would be way worse than
Yes.
than what
We would not be
It's
nearly
like-
as successful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like people are like, yeah, like what happens when you have like a big disagreement? We're like, we don't.
I
that
don't
hasn't
know.
happened yet.
Yeah.
yeah.
You generally have a shared vision on
Yeah, we have a
things.
shared vision.
Yeah.
There are times where it's basically if like one of us will see and be like, does this idea actually work?
Makes sense, or is it
One of us might be more
inconsistent
attached to
with-
it? Yeah. And the big thing, it's not even a big thing, but a thing that we've had to do several times was like when we were writing the Shuck Oyster, which you can get on TTRPG as well as through the Bloodmore Kickstarter if you back at the higher tiers. When we were writing that, we wanted to make sure we're like, okay, like we have this idea about what can happen in town, and we want to spice up what's happening in town, but we don't want to interfere with the core of what the
Right,
game,
which is dungeon delving.
yeah,
and
exactly,
doing
and the site-based adventures and things like that. So there were things where we're like, okay, we need to kind of take this idea, but make sure to have this tie back into that core of the game. And it's the same thing with basically any game that we're writing for.
Right.
Is like, is this cool idea I have consistent with the thing we're making it for?
exactly.
And so there's a lot of times where we're just sitting staring at the ceiling and like talking, and nothing gets written for a day or two, and then there's times
then
where
it's
it's
like,
8
got
hours
it.
Just
Yeah.
comes to you.
Yeah.
True.
It's an enormous amount of fun, and Nick's like the most creative person I've met in my entire life by a mile.
Yeah.
So it's
It's a good partnership.
Yeah, it's a really good partnership, and especially with the kind of, because we're known as being like the serious story gamer, the vampire guys, but it's the Shuck Oyster is very surreal and very funny, and it's a goofy place.
Yeah.
Yes.
But there's also like there is something else going on underneath
Exactly.
the surface that's very serious as well. So it's like we really like, people think like, this might be just like too goofy, and it's like,
Yeah, it's
if you
not
take
just
it
a bit.
seriously, it's not just
Yeah,
a bit.
yeah.
And it's like, if you take it seriously, there's a lot there. And when you take it as seriously as you can, you're going to end up dying laughing because things become so absurd. It was
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it was like when I was talking in your game the other day. I was having me and the high priest were, and I said something, and we both just stopped and burst out laughing because it was just like, okay, this is too goofy. Like, this is like, we were really into it, And so we encourage people to do that. And that's it's just enormous amount of fun to write for Shadowdark, and part of it is because it has that. There's so much freedom, and there aren't these hard world constraints built into the system that
It's the freedom. There's no zone walls, that to
Yeah.
use the video game term. There's no hard restrictions. What it has is a strong identity. It has a strong.
yeah
It's more than just a vibe. If you're really reading it, I understand what this is, and that's a true. That's a true niche, right?
Yeah.
That's something you want to move with the current of
Yeah.
that. It's not a restriction on creativity. It's those are the grid markers on the blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier. And I think a lot of people get that.
right.
And that's why we're seeing so much stuff happening.
Yeah, and
Right.
our stuff, like we've always thought that the characters in any game are the most interesting thing that happens.
Yeah, it's
So
the
this-
foundational building block of any game.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not going to remember how many hit points I had 20 years from now.
Right.
I am going to
So true.
remember the wild things that we did to that NPC.
Exactly.
Like the way that we thought this idea was going to work, and it completely failed, and we all died. Like, and all of that comes out of the characters, and so all of our adventures are built on characters, and so it's like the Shuck Oyster is basically like, it's a place, but really it's just a point that connects all these weirdos, all these people that you can get
Yes.
involved in and in their schemes, and stepping on their toes. And the same thing, we did the same thing in the adventure section of Cults of Zahak, but it's like the network is like twice the size.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's huge,
And it had to be.
It had to,
but
be.
it was tough.
It was really tough. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was something we realized. We were like, okay, the bigger the network gets, it's like exponentially
Yeah.
more complicated.
But the
to like
asymptote
square.
goes out,
Yeah.
And with Cults, it was something that had to be a much
more
grounded,
tonally
much
grounded.
more grounded
Yeah.
than the Shuck Oyster was. But we took that, and that's been kind of we had already come up with the kind of wider world was already growing, and then we started playing in Bloodmore. But it was taking that idea of these characters and putting it just to the national scale. So it's like, obviously every country has to be ruled by a legendary monster, and they all hate each other.
Yes.
Of course.
And
So much tension.
yeah, they hate each other, or there's
Unrequited love,
Yes.
there's-
or childhood rivalries,
Yeah.
or
Uh,
so we're very interested in hearing what legendary lunatic
Yeah.
and their country are people's favorites.
yeah.
Yes.
We have ours.
Do you have like secret favorites? Are you like,
Are
you allowed to say it, or is
kind
it-
of outright favorites?
Yeah.
There's they're all really funny, but there's one of the lands, because each land in Bloodmore is like its own self-contained kind of monster
thematic
genre.
deal, yeah.
So it's like if you're in the country of Bloodmore, this is Transylvania. It's vampire land. If you go to the country of Fleischland, that's going to be body horror land, Frankenstein. We've
Tesla
got
coils.
Tesla
and-
coils, Victorian
Yes.
science.
Yeah.
So appropriate.
We've got Wraithholm, which is this kind of like dark Arthurian, like mournful. There's
Melodramatic.
melodramatic, and run by this Death Knight, Sir Lucan Maldroth. But Gorgavale is this place that is basically like heavy metal album cover land.
Yes.
And it's run by this insane lich named Kadafra. And he's got a lot of really insane plans.
He's made do on many insane plans, which
Yeah.
is why his entire country has been blasted into oblivion.
It's like
He's like, I'm fine.
Yeah, if you've ever known like the Stalker games where it's like the zone things, like physics are all messed up. It's like he's done so many
Anomalies.
magical experiments on his people that like it's like a completely dangerous like place where nothing works.
They're like,
His
"Why do we
country
live
is a
here?"
dungeon.
Yeah.
The whole thing, the whole thing. Wow, that is like the ultimate mega dungeon. Is the entire country
Yeah.
is one. Yeah.
Well, we do have but this will not be mapped. This will be up to the players to do this. But there
Yes,
is the
yes.
potential for a mega dungeon as well because we have the moon is the only source of illumination in the world. There is no.
It's always nighttime.
It's always night.
Oh, good. Okay.
There is
Yeah.
sort of a day-night cycle in that, like, if you've seen TV, I'm sure you've seen TV.
Here and there.
You ever heard of it? Yeah. But it's like when they shoot something, so they shoot something in the day and then they put a blue filter on it. It's nighttime.
Ah, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
It's
yes.
day for night. It's like that. It's the moon getting brighter and darker, but it's got this horrible, crazy face on it, and its expressions change. It's the faces of the moon that alters things, reality. But we have this kind of fast travel system that your players can discover that's incredibly dangerous. It's these gateways, these portals that
The moon doors.
the moon doors. You step through the gate, and you're inside the moon in this horrific mega dungeon. That if you get far enough, you can find another gate. You
And
come out somewhere else.
Yep.
I love that.
Yeah.
It sends you actually up to the evil moon.
Yeah,
I love it.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's a lot of things inside.
There's a lot of secrets that the moon contains,
and
and
people are trying to manipulate its power. But
It's
Mungo
gonna be very
Borlov, the vampire of Bloodmore, who's just awakened and is going to try to reconquer the world. He's also probably up there for our favorites.
Mungo. I mean,
Yeah,
Mungo,
like-
who's also on the cover of the Shuck Oyster.
He's got his 3 Dracula brides. And they've been running amok for 300 years, ruining
Well,
his
he's been
country.
asleep, and
So now
like,
he's trying
jeez,
He's like, I gotta
I really messed up. I gotta
yeah,
divorce
I
my
gotta
wives.
divorce my wives.
Start
But I'm a
over.
traditionalist, so I need to
Yeah.
abide by monster law,
Yeah.
which is something that we mention and do not elaborate on in the
Shut
Shuck Oyster.
yeah.
But we will elaborate more. So he
Yeah.
he has many plans
Yeah.
to get things the way he wants it to be.
Yeah.
I love this. You guys develop such real feeling NPCs.
Yeah.
It's I think a lot of NPCs are a little bit one note, even villains, but you
Mhm.
guys obviously have invested so much elbow grease into making them feel very real and
Yeah.
having like flaws and weaknesses, but also like there's something really fun, especially as a game master, about being handed like a villain
Yeah.
that actually has so much richness that you can
Yeah.
really be like, I can actually play this like a character.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
I am a
exactly.
character now at the table too. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's something we found, the way that we're able to really kind of hone in on the kind of core fun things to play was basically discovering that like every relationship, even between the leaders of nations, it's all high school drama.
It
Yeah.
is.
It never goes any farther than that.
Because we ended up
We
made the rookie mistake, or we almost
Yeah.
made the rookie mistake because we were making it too complicated in the Shuck
yeah,
Oyster.
there was one character.
And it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense, and we're writing ourselves more and more into this hole. And it's like, okay, we've
How
got
do we solve
we've got these
we
these
keep adding
connections
more
with these two
wheels
other
within
characters.
wheels. Yeah, like
Yeah, let's add more to
Yeah.
make it all fit. Like no,
we're like
no.
You know what happened? These two characters, they used to date. They had a bad breakup.
Yeah, simple
Problem
as
solved.
done.
Yeah,
Yes.
problem.
There you
solved.
go.
And then it was way better.
Yeah.
because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot easier to handle. That's
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you guys too, like I know that it's also challenging to be creating these very like interlocked
Mhm.
relationships between characters, and then how do you convey that to the game master in a way that like actually they can use? That's really
Yeah.
hard. So like, and you guys have done a good job at that.
Thank
but
you.
What is
Thank
your
you.
what is your way of being like, oh, this is too much versus too little, or how do I
think
put this out there?
It has to be based on the sort of the primal emotionality
Yeah.
of it. I mean, and it's frankly more realistic, because a lot that
Yeah.
happens in the real world is just that.
Yeah.
There's no deeper backstory.
Right.
There's no Machiavellian wheels within
Right.
wheels
It's
going
just
on.
that people are petty sometimes.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
needs to be-
yeah. Pretty easily driven by emotion.
Yeah.
it's the emotion, not the lore of it, or not the encyclopedic justification for what it is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, fair.
And each character is very much like, you should pretty much, we try to use names to give you the gimmick immediately.
Right
Yeah.
away.
You know, exactly.
Like Cadabra.
Yeah.
Cadabra,
It's so
exactly.
correct. That's the most correct name ever.
Yeah, we have, Deadeye Gormax.
Deadeye
you know,
Gormax,
the
yes.
Cyclopean Archer. You know, it's like
Gaston the Righteous.
Gaston the Righteous.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't need a picture of him.
Yeah,
I already know who he
I
is.
already know who he is. But
Yeah.
then, and it's kind of leaning into the taking whatever that gimmick is to the absolute maximum. And it's some of the things were just sort of, I feel like implied from the beginning, but we started before we even wrote those characters. We just wrote the names of all the patrons and kind of like, what is this guy? It's like, all right, one of these
Barnaby
guys,
Fumblebutter.
yeah,
Yes,
he's a
already-
baker. you
Yeah,
know?
we need a fat Norm.
Yeah.
You know, from Cheers
Yeah.
to be at the.
We need someone who's like an old, like, we have the Gravedigger, Pleasant Peter, but his name is Pleasant. We wrote Pleasant Peter, and we're like, this is the most fucked up guy in
Yeah,
town.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
the secret psycho right here.
Yeah, exactly. Or Mondopoulos Gangler, who is
Our favorite
yeah,
character.
who is our favorite character. Yeah, I wonder if he's a doppelganger.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like it's especially with this, it was easy to just convey, this is who this person is.
Right.
And there were certain kind of relationships that were already implied. Some of them were more difficult than others, but there was just it was a lot of part of it's just that it's fun to write this stuff for us, so it
Yeah.
feels easy sometimes. It's not easy,
Right.
and occasionally it does feel easy, but then it feels very, very hard sometimes.
Yeah. But that's how you know, like, I don't know, I'm sure you guys feel this way, that when you're having fun writing, you know it's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah.
When you're trying to drag it out of yourself, I almost feel like I've abandoned working on things before. I was like, why does this feel like pulling teeth?
Right.
Because
Mm-hmm.
then it's just not coming through. I don't know. Usually, people ask, like, what's your best advice for adventure writing? And I'm like, you should be like evilly cackling to yourself the whole
Yeah,
time you're
yeah,
writing
exactly.
Yeah.
and being like,
Yeah.
I can't wait to use this.
Yeah.
And if you're not, then you either
Yeah.
got to find your way to it, or you have to maybe move on to something else.
Right.
And you have to have a strong premise, and you have to believe in that premise. Whether
Yes,
it's
yes.
a 5-room dungeon, an entire game system, a campaign setting, whatever,
Mhm.
because it's factually the case that's the soul of it.
Yeah.
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 Not only is it going to be misery for you to worry about the lore facts and
Yeah.
the minutia details of it, which are of
Almost
far
like-
lesser
Yeah.
importance.
Yeah.
They just don't even see use by the
Right.
person running
Exactly.
it. Probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, it's like, what are you going to remember?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why all of our lore, so to speak, needs to be kind of interactable. You know, like, you have to
Yeah.
be able to discover it and have it be part of the game. Because that is another part of the thing where it's like, we've come up with some cool ideas before and been like, is this gameable though? And
Yeah.
if it's not, how do we make this game? Or does it need to get cut?
Yeah, it's either
Right.
actively gameable, potentially actively
it's like, how
gameable
can
at the
it-
session, or what it does is it's history or lore or secrets that add a whole other layer to that bombastic vibe where it's
Yeah.
like, holy shit, that
Yeah.
makes so much sense, and
Yes.
that's
Yes.
even more hilarious.
I love
Yeah.
it. Yeah. That's so interesting. It's cool too, because I think that you guys get this idea too. And I'm not like trying to speak from like, oh, I know everything, but like, I think that if you don't have a really clear understanding of what you're writing,
Mhm.
then there's always like a loss of fidelity as it moves on between you and the game master, and then from the game master to the players.
Yeah.
And so like trying to keep the really core memorable driving things that's a huge part of Shadowdark's core mentality. Like there's a lot more detail I could have given to a lot of things, but I was like, either it's not going to get used right, it's going to get forgotten,
Right.
or it's just going to be lost in the like translation between me to the GM to player, players to each other.
Yeah.
You're going to lose about like a quarter of the accuracy of things in that exchange. And so I think you guys have been really, really good at identifying that stuff to latch onto and then conveying it and making it memorable and fun.
Yeah.
That I was very impressed in the Shuck Oyster
Thank
with
you.
that.
Thank
like
you.
I was
Yeah.
cackling when I was reading it.
Yeah.
I was
We
like,
were
I- this
cackling
is
What
while we wrote
everybody
it. Yeah.
should
Yeah,
experience.
yeah. It's so good.
Yeah, we were cackling while we wrote it. And we're
You
cackling,
should be, yeah.
we're cackling more writing Bloodmore.
Good.
Yes.
That's the secret,
Yeah,
is to
it's
have
so
fun while
good.
you're doing it. Yeah.
It's so much fun. And yeah, like all the different countries and the way that the relationships work between the different monsters in this one is so funny. It's so funny. And I can't wait for people to get into it and join
Yeah.
these weird factions and discover their secrets and there will be some deep lore for Bloodmore
Yes.
that the game master will have, and the players can uncover it. But there's no character in the world that was alive when any of it happened.
Nobody remembers.
Nobody remembers.
Oh,
so
good.
there's
There's
not
no
gonna be-
great mastermind who's
Yeah,
pulling
there's no
the
whisper
strings.
Oh,
that's gonna
thank
tell
God there's
you
no
the
Elminster. Yeah.
Yeah.
prophecy. You know,
Yeah,
that
none
doesn't
of that.
exist. If you
No
figure
offense to
out,
Elminster, but
yeah,
that's like, come on.
Like people have asked us with regard to the the oyster. It's like, wow, the Shuck Oyster. It's so dense. There's so many characters, and there's so much going on. Like, surely that has to be draining for you. Like, do you ever feel like you're out of ideas? Like, no. Like, because
More. Yeah.
I can't imagine that's going to happen because we haven't finished writing Bloodmore yet.
Yeah.
We're still writing it right now, and already we're at the point where there's more here that is not going to fit
in this book.
Bloodmore at all. So
It's so
I
funny.
don't foresee us stopping.
Oh, yeah,
writing
there-
for and Shadowdark makes it so easy.
Yeah.
We're just going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it gets out of the way and you guys have that, and then you also have a lot of master like Mithras and other
Yeah.
systems that are more crunchy. I think that it's interesting that you can pull ideas forth that cater to those different styles,
Mm-hmm.
and they sort of scratch a different itch. Like
Yeah,
I
totally.
like domain management too. I like doing crunchy stuff and like all the numbers based stuff. I don't like writing that
it.
kind of
No,
thing,
totally.
but
no, I get it.
but it's fun to play though, and
Yeah.
so like I get why those things exist.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool that you guys are doing.
Mhm.
You're kind of doing both things.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just
I mean,
wild.
like
Yeah.
we try to tell people all the time, like it's good to have your meat and potatoes game that you're playing in this campaign, but like people are like, oh man, I don't want to learn a new system. I'm like, why? Like
Why?
they're all like, there's so many great games out there, and they all feel different, and they play
Yeah.
differently, and they create these different experiences.
Yeah, they do different
different
things
things.
Mhm.
really well.
Yeah.
The good ones.
Yeah,
Right.
You
and
know.
you can't have one system that does everything.
Everything.
You
It's
can't.
it's not possible.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no painting. There's no movie that
Right.
That
the
does
best
everything,
kind. Like
yeah.
this great comedy movie was a really terrible drama.
Yeah.
Or horror
Yeah,
movie.
I know. It's like, oh my god, it's so funny how. Yeah, and isn't it? I'm sure you guys have run into this, but I think there's a lot of like. There's a contingent of people that sort of have this one true wayism where they're like, I will find the best game ever made, or
Yeah, you're not gonna
or
find
I'll
the best
write
game.
it, or
Yeah.
like no, it doesn't exist. Like, yeah,
Yeah, it's a low resolution. I understand where the impulse comes from because
Yeah.
you're seeking quality is what you're
Mhm.
doing, but you haven't thought about your own thoughts.
Right.
It's a very low resolution, expression of that impulse. It's like I understand where you're coming from, but that's not how
That's
the world
not how
works.
it works. Yeah.
Right.
There's no system that is going to be any system that is made to do everything is not going to do anything very good.
No.
Generally.
Right.
And this is like games. We were having a conversation with someone the other day. Might have been Lord Mattias, but it was like, okay, like what's you guys like really simulationist stuff? Like, where's the line? What's the perfect system? And it's like that's really not.
That's
it.
not the right question.
That's not the right question because it's like it depends on the genre you're playing in. It's like if I'm playing Mithras, it's going to be this very mythic Bronze Age thing where it's like every blow matters
Matters
and
and
society
deadly
it's more of like a Dunbar number, like small thing, and we're focused on this idea. But if I want to do adventuring and delving into tombs and things like that, that's what D&D and all the D&D like games are for.
Right, right.
And it's like I wouldn't use the granularity of Mithras in Vampire, and I wouldn't
Right.
use
Right.
the vampire mechanics in Shadowdark. Like
Yeah.
they're different because they do different things better,
Yes.
and they're not
Right.
trying to do those other things.
And this is
So-
in fact a good thing. What it
right.
It is.
tells you is
Yeah.
the world and your imagination are a far wider expanse
Yeah.
than you're giving it credit for.
Right.
Yes, yes. I don't trust people who only have one game system on
I know,
their shelf.
I
I'm
know.
like, who
Yeah.
are you?
Yeah.
I don't trust you.
So true.
Yeah, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
play with you.
No. You're like, oh, it's my job to fix this.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to get them at least 10 times that many games by the
Right.
end of the year. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Anyway, this has been
This
a
was
lot of
great.
fun. Thank you so much for sitting down with
Yeah.
us.
Thank you guys. I'm
yeah.
so glad we got to. I mean, we did meet last year
Very
at this
briefly.
con, but it was like
Yeah.
too brief. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
To see you
Awesome to
both
meet
do
you.
this.
Thank you so
Absolutely.
much again for supporting Shuck Oyster and Bloodmore.
Yeah, and again,
Yes.
congrats on all the
All the
success.
success.
For
Oh.
Well-deserved
reaches.
success.
Thanks, you guys. Congrats to you guys too. I mean,
Thank
like
you.
you're already knocking it out of the park, and we're like a quarter of the way through the campaign as we're filming this right
we
now.
got-
Yeah, we
So-
launched on Tuesday.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we're feeling good about it.
Yeah.
So go pledge for it.
Yeah, go
Yeah.
pledge.
Yeah, you heard it here
You
first.
hear, yeah, it's gonna zoom and it's gonna go pledge.
Pledge.
Ah,
All right. Cool, you
Awesome.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.